Hey everybody, this is Brian Vaughn, and here we are in another edition of Crow Tribe Conversations. And people have asked, well, what's Crow Tribe Conversations, Brian? Well, it's Crow Tribe is a nickname given to a professional community we have in the North Lake Washington area. That is for those not in the Seattle area, the northernmost part of Lake Washington, which is a big, beautiful lake that separates Seattle, Washington, and the town of Bellevue. And the very crown of that is the town of Kenmore, and there's crows everywhere, and not in a bad way, not a creepy way, but it's kind of a fun way. And I always thought that crows were clever and kind of funny and humorous, and so we just adopted that as our logo. And one of our dear members, Forrest, just happened to refer to us casually, inadvertently, as the Crow Tribe, and I kind of like it. So there we are. So there's nothing more serious than that. So my good friend Amp Harrell is here. And Amp has a perspective unlike anybody I know, and that he's a former Tennessee. What do you call them? Tennesseans? Amp? What's the person that lives in Tennessee? Okay,
yeah, that's the demonym is Tennessean.
All right. So and now Amp is he's taken that perspective and come up to the upper left part of the country, and man, is he fun to listen to. Not just because he's got a great voice, he's got what I call melodious, wonderful pipes, which hopefully comes through in this conversation, but his observations on humanity and Tennesseans and Washingtonians and parts in between. So just fun guy. So we don't know what's going to happen, and it really doesn't matter. That's the whole point. These are conversations. And let me say the one thing about the name of our group, that is North Lake Washington Business Connection. Too long to say. We have a website, nlwbc.org. But of those 5 letters that define our name, the word connection is the most important. And I really strive to make connections with people. There you go. You're clouded out. That looked like you're flipping me off. In case, it's a good thing there's not much video here, but I know that wasn't the case.
You gotta watch every episode, folks, to get all the
But the connection's the important thing. Personal connection. You know, we're professional advocates. Those of us who are a member of this Crow Tribe, and that's the business reason for it to exist, but there's no such thing without that personal connection as well. So anyway, this is more about Amp than it's about me. Give you some of the preamble. And my brother, welcome to Saturday. We're in casual mode Saturday. I'm wearing my Feel the Burn t-shirt. You got your Seahawks. Who was that? Number 20?
That's 25, man.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, yeah, I picked this one up. It's not a throwback, but he's not on the team anymore. But I picked this one up actually at like Value Village or something for $15, and good grief, that was a bargain. I got a rep. I got to be a Seattleite, a Washingtonian, King Countyan by I guess residence, and Snohomish Countyan. I hope that's what I'm saying right, by work.
Snohomies. There's something called the Snohomies anyway. So
yes, well the Snohomies. That's more about being around Snohomish, the city.
Specific, yeah.
Yes. Which somebody came up with that, and they should trademark that.
Do you feel like a Seattleite now? You certainly seem like, but because of or in spite of your history.
Well, and that it's funny you should say it that way, because do I feel like I fit in here? I think I do. But every once in a while, my fiance and her family have to occasionally, give me the old gut check. You're a Tennessean. You're not a local. You're not from here. So it's all in good fun. But they know how much I love being in this part of the country, and so you can't let anybody get too high or too low.
What a brutal thing, but to have that feeling that you're not from around here, and maybe you never will be, or if you don't. At what point do you have roots, right? So I guess that's kind of a curious thing. Those of us who are somewhat transient, I grew up as a transient lifestyle kid, so I feel like you're putting down roots, man. You're doing some things. This is not predominantly about your profession, but what you do professionally gives you some local cred that I would feel your roots go deeper, quicker, and more profoundly than a lot of folks have maybe lived here their whole life. So let's go ahead and tell us a little about what do you do, man?
Well, I'm going to do that in reverse. I'm going to go to the caboose instead of the engine, because
All right.
I do network and I sell advertising. I'm a marketing consultant, but the roots going deeper, quicker I
Hmm.
have been here, I've been at my job for just a week over 5 years. And that's shocking to me. It feels like the pandemic was just yesterday. But I moved in November of 19 and I started the new job literally the day the pandemic hit or the day
Yeah.
that we were all sent home. But I had an awkward but fun exchange with someone at a networking mixer. They said, "Oh yeah, we've been working with Amp for years." When introducing me to something, like, "No, it hasn't." Wait a minute. Okay, but that's still not that shouldn't be years, but no, it's been a long time, even though it hasn't felt like it. I work for a company that has two radio stations in that Snohomish County area, Everett,
Mhm.
Washington, and Snohomish, Washington, and all the surrounding areas. We target men and women 40 to 70-ish with classic country or kind of a classic rock blend. We call it Everett's greatest hits. And the advertising sales and marketing solutions on those stations are great because they target people that have money that are typically homeowners, and so
Mhm.
we have the strength of that, but we also have the challenge of this perception in the marketplace that nobody listens to radio anymore because they're all listening to podcasts or Spotify or Pandora or Sirius XM. And so I've got to combat that, but it's marketing. So I
Mhm.
do a little bit more than that. We have all sorts of digital solutions, including one of the things I'm excited about is streaming TV. So if you have a brand that you want to expose people to in specific zip codes or specific incomes or what have you, we're able
Mhm.
to target in ways that a couple of AM radio stations definitely couldn't have done 15 years ago.
For those of you listening, you can see why AMP as a valuable professional contributor to the Crow Tribe as a business community. But maybe you could tell by his voice that this guy, I have watched his play-by-play of, I don't know, I think it was like ninth grade girls volleyball, or I mean, some other things, but there's some of these that, man, this was a beautiful thing to behold. And as I asked you about it, you said you had about 5 minutes of you looking at the rocks. I don't know. Tell me about that. How do you get gigs like that? And your and I've also seen you do football, like I guess it's high school games. You've been high school interviews on the field stuff. Talk about some of that stuff because that really fascinates me. The volleyball. I want to hear
So,
about the volleyball starting with. What's that story?
well, I was just going to say to answer your question of how do you get those gigs, the answer
Mhm.
is stubborn persistence.
Uh,
That's the best answer I can give on any of that. I realized I wanted to do play by play when I was 15 and started doing my own on an Emerson tape recorder that was probably older than I was. And I brought the cassette tapes for the kids. That's the thing before CDs. For the
yeah.
real kids, that's the thing before streaming. Just ask your parents. But I brought these cassette tapes in to try to get a job doing that before I could drive, and
Yeah.
that's kind of been the way I've approached it ever since. Is any place I'm at, any connections I make, any schools I talk to, you guys need somebody to do play by play? And I landed here behind a two-time Hall of Famer. I am not going to kick Tom Lafferty out of the chair. That is not going to happen. But he knew I wanted to do that. And so he referred me to a guy who does YouTube live streaming of volleyball and soccer and basketball and football and tons of other things. And so I just kind of got in the rotation. And shocker of shockers, people don't know or want to do play by play of volleyball. If you didn't play, it's it's a weird game, and I say that with love. But it's not like you were playing volleyball out in the backyard with a stick and a piece of fruit. You either were in that universe or you were not, and so I I was given the assignment of doing volleyball. I'm like, you sure, bro? Like, I've never played. I barely remember most of the rules. But it's volleyball is one of those things that it's more about, I would say, the Jimmies and the Joes and the X's and the O's, because it's about names. If you can say the young athletes' names, then that's what the parents and the grandparents want to hear more than
Mhm.
anything else. Teach people of the rules as you go along. Don't get too deep into it and try not to argue. But other than that, it's just about calling the ball movement and recognizing young athletes. And that's really what it boils down to at any level in any sport. could be doing checkers here and just recognize the names and the brilliance, and the rest just comes to you.
You know, as you say that, this is, you know, probably inappropriate tangents, but there's some things that have been successfully created as consumer products, and that's, well, I used to think, why is bowling a TV sport? What the, you know, but now there's whatever beanbag or whatever that, you know, whatever that's called. You know what I'm
Cornhole.
talking, cornhole. What the hell? People they have logos on their shirts and they're throwing a friggin' beanbag, and yet people consume this stuff. Even more than that, you're gonna watch somebody else play poker, and that's a sport? What the? I don't know. But I
That is
think,
a marketing design, my friend. That is
right?
the poker companies, the manufacturers, the casinos, the card makers, the chip makers, and all of that. They put money behind it, and ESPN didn't have a whole lot going on Tuesdays, so Tuesday nights are for poker. And I got to tell you, it's advertising that works, because I set up a Tuesday night poker game when I was in college, and we would get the $5 Little Caesars hot and ready pizzas and sit
Yeah.
down, and half of us didn't even know how the rules worked. Nobody knew how to properly bluff, but if you crapped out and were busted or whatever, then you just go in the living room and watch the poker on TV if you didn't want to watch the same two people play heads up for the next hour.
Man, here's a connection. The interesting thing about that, here's a boring product. To me, it seems boring. And yet, when presented and packaged right, it's, you know, you get people, wait, what? Notice. And I think this is where there's a leap that you wouldn't think of. I was so shy as a kid, but there's always some cute girl that's trying to get to notice me because I was a pleasantly
What?
ignorable person. And at anything, and all of us professionally, you know, to have somebody to notice and then pay attention or be curious about whatever else might come out of, you know, the screen or the speakers or whatever. And I have thought about things like you've heard me talk about in Crow Tribe conversations about the brilliance of, you know, unexpected pairing, Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. No, we've all heard about it, but the first time, what? Holy crap! Let me tune in and see what this is about. So
Well,
you,
and what makes that work, by the way, is you have
yeah,
a hardened criminal who has done some serious time for some high level offenses, and you have Snoop Dogg.
yeah, but I'm bummed. Yeah, we all now know that. In the beginning, didn't make sense. But those kinds of things, how do you? That's the intrigue in general. When I meet people, how do they? Well, how do they become successful? How do they do what they do, or how do they make something boring fun? And I have professional reasons to want to learn from people like that. But like JD's thing as a videographer in our group, his mantra for his business is so simple. It's two words: be known. And what does he do? He helps people be known. And plus, he happens to be a great guy. But so that's some of the intrigue. Some like in your life, my intrigue with you is you decided to go from someplace else to here in the Pacific Northwest, and I love it here for a lot of reasons. Originally, I came because my kid and grandkids were here, but they're not anymore. But I'm not following them to Texas for crying out loud. So here we are. So those are the kind of, we have legitimate professional reasons to have conversations because the stuff you do and stuff you're good at, I so admire, maybe even envy. But among the stories that you've suggested might be worth telling is whatever it is about whiskey country radio while we're still on the radio background. Why are those three words worth repeating?
Okay, so I laughed because the attention span of a sand flea over here. I'm just squirrel. I forgot what it was that I had even briefed you on. I was like, okay, he's going to serve up this one for me, and I forgot what it was. So I have spent basically my entire adult life
Yeah.
in local radio somewhere.
Mhm.
And I actually left a local radio job in my birth city that I had been at for almost a decade in two stints to go sell postcards.
Mm.
And I say that with a bit of dripping malice there. Nothing wrong with postcards, nothing wrong with the mail, nothing wrong with this company, and it's a great product that I was selling. But it was so weird that I'm doing play-by-play of high school sports and middle school sports actually, and I'm building a reputation, and kids' parents still message me from time to time saying, "Dang it, I wish you were still here doing these games because it's just not the same." But I left that behind to go sell postcards. And I was doing this for a company not unlike the one I'm at right now that had a little bit of everything. It had some radio, it had some digital stuff, it had this, it had that. And so of course with my skills there was some bleed over. And they
Okay.
had me doing play by play. I eventually wound up doing some we call it voice tracking, where you sound like you're a live host but you're not. And so I was voice tracking a little bit on some of these stations. But the thing I was the most proud of in this cluster was, and that's not an insult, by the way. That the cluster refers to
I was
a group
wondering,
of
yeah.
stations. Yeah, my bad. Get in the lingo.
We
Was so
got
we
this.
had two stations, and then they bought another one
Mhm.
called Cat Country, and it was just this generic, bland branding. Nothing wrong with it, but just nothing special. Well,
Okay.
this area was basically where whiskey comes from. It
Okay.
was Tullahoma, it was Lynchburg, it was Manchester. Tullahoma is where George Dickel is made. Lynchburg is the home of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And Manchester is the home of a craft distillery. It's minority owned, it's female owned. It's named for the person who, in legend, the enslaved person that taught Jack how to make Jack. It's called Uncle Nearest, and if you're a whiskey person, it's phenomenal.
All
Try the
right.
1856. They're not paying me to say that.
Okay.
But I got to make sure that's in there because YouTube will try and demonetize or whatever this video.
All
So
right. Fair
not an
enough.
ad. But when we were trying to come up with, okay, what's something we can say about our country station that's local? And someone just had the idea. I don't even think it was me, but someone was like, what if we call it Whiskey Country? Like, dude, that makes too much sense. And there
Right.
was a lot of pushback inside the building from the older, slightly more conservative, and I don't mean that
Hmm.
just politically, but just it's not a safe brand because
Mm.
the county that they make Jack Daniels in is still a dry county. You can't legally purchase Jack Daniels on the Jack Daniels tour unless you're buying a commemorative bottle that they've engraved that they will happen to fill with commemorative Jack Daniels. But you can't go
Wow.
to the liquor store right down the street from Jack unless it's on the other side of the county line. So calling something whiskey in the place where they frickin' make whiskey was controversial. But we banded together. The members of the staff that were on board were like, hell no. There is no other Eagle Country. No, no. They even joked about calling it Trump Country. Um, but
Oh.
but I was like, if we change this name, I will quit, and I have nothing to do with the radio station. I will walk out if we change this name. And they had a whiskey barrel in the logo. They even kind of soccerified it with a roundel. They had a Sam Elliott impersonator doing the imaging. Born on the 4th of July and raised in the hills of Middle Tennessee, you're in whiskey country. I'm like, this is radio perfection.
It's
Don't touch
gold.
it.
Oh man.
And so I still have the shirt, I still have the hat, and I haven't worked there since 2018 or 2019. And I love that brand so much.
Man, that is so much more than I'm so glad I asked. Holy smokes. That is at so many levels, man. We could have a whole packaged conversation just about that. And it makes
Well,
me want to go to Tennessee
and if I wouldn't recommend it
to
most of the
visit.
time, but
To visit. So
uh,
yeah.
what I was going to say, this is my hosting side coming out of me because
Hmm.
the thing that I want to say about that is we've talked on the mic and off the mic about
Hmm.
local and about what makes me a local Washingtonian and all of that. And when you
Right.
get it, you can't teach that to somebody. You can't just
Yeah.
stick it in a box. They open it up. Oh, you are now a local. It's the stuff that only people get who are here. Like if I can be a little bit crude, I've seen on Facebook, eat a bag of dicks is not an insult in Seattle.
That's
People around
true.
the country are like,
Yeah.
what on earth did he just? Dick's Burgers. It's
Yeah.
like the In and Out burger of the greater Seattle area.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't like prices for everything has gone up, but it's still cheap for fast food. But they pay their employees a higher wage than minimum. They support education. They've got like 6 or 8 locations, and that's it. And it will you can start a fight by arguing over is Dick's the best burger in Seattle, and people just don't get that. It's like the
Yeah.
Crows in Kenmore. It's like I don't know, like we have a Bavarian town in north central Washington. How? Why? What?
Yeah.
When you get it in ways that don't make sense outside of about an hour drive, you
Yeah.
are a local.
Yep. Yep. Well, I know you get it, man. And I am when I think of the reasons that I conceived in LWBC from the beginning, the kind of stuff I was meeting you, somebody like you, but especially you, was a great, oh man, this is the reason this exists. So, and why we do these things is we're not striving to have thousands of people to be in a buyer. We're making a difference to one or two or anybody. That makes it worth it. So I love your stories, man. And I know we could go on like too long for most people to consume. What I was gonna, this is what I hate to do. I kind of want to kind of abbreviate this and maybe do it again with some other tangent because I feel like, for instance, that whole Tennessee whiskey, taking that tangent and talking about whiskey and making that path. There's some other overlapping things that could be a lot of fun to get deeper and kind of dig in a little bit. I might like to do that. Is that something you might be interested in?
Oh yeah, we can come back to this again. I'm guessing you have a couple other questions, or is that have we already hit half an
Well,
hour?
I don't even know because the plan was not to. I don't. This is not. We don't have somebody else to make way for. This is what we do. What we do. A couple things I do want to ask though is that we had the word. Well, these other things could have whole conversations. Would take in another incremental half an hour. But you talked about play by play. One of the things I want to do. This occurred to me as we're talking. I would like to attach to the end of our conversation, whether it's a few minutes or another half an hour. Do you have an example of a play-by-play, whether it's audio, video, whatever, that I could attach to this? I would love to share with people. Here's an example that Amp does. Whether it's I whether it's I think volleyball would be, since we've talked about that. If you do you have something that would be, even if it's just
Well,
a
I
snippet? I'd
no
like
no
to punctuate
calls.
this.
I was gonna say no calls specifically come to mind of like that one was perfect, but yeah, I could go through the guy that I do the play by play for. His YouTube channel is just STSPN. ST
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
Snohomish Times,
Yep, I
and
know that.
then
Okay.
SPN like ESPN. So if
All
you
right.
if you click through there, I'm one of about 4 or 5 dudes that he utilizes. One that might be kind of fun if you can find it. He doesn't exactly label them for the broadcasters to be obvious because it's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
yeah.
games.
Yep, yep.
But I typically do play by play, and then you have a color analyst, color commentator who provides more color, more depth, more insights.
Yeah.
And in this case, I was actually doing a football game as the color commentator because the play by play guy was Casey Bryant, the play by play
Oh.
voice of the Everett Silvertips. So you have a hockey broadcaster from upstate New York doing play-by-play of high school football in Snohomish, and then you have a guy who's never played at any level being his color commentator, and somehow it fucking worked.
Yeah. I like that
But yeah, I'll
example.
send you
Good.
some links.
We'll find some of that. So I had been on SDSBN and watched you do that, some of that. So um, the thing I want people, if somebody is intrigued and they want to get a hold of you directly, whether is that North Sound Media, or you have what's contact information in audio format you would be willing to share if somebody wanted to talk some more to Amp Harrell, the
Okay,
man
so I'm
called
going to
Amp.
give you two. I'm going to
Okay.
give you a phone number that
Okay.
applies for work and for pleasure. I can't
Okay.
text at it yet, but it forwards to my cell phone, and that is
Okay.
425 304 1291. So 425 304 1291, the work phone that also rings the bat phone here. And
Okay.
then if you just want to talk about stuff that doesn't necessarily pertain to radio or advertising or sales, if I've got the curiosity, this is one that people get wrong more often than I expect. It's literally just ManCalledAmp at gmail.com. I grabbed
All
that
right.
probably about 12 to 13 years ago when I was really trying to take over the branding of being AMP, and AMP is too short for most websites, most things like that. So, well, why not man called AMP? My I want to say it was my insurance gal that handles my property and casualty insurance.
Mhm.
She's known me for years, and she tried to send it to a man called AMP at
Ah,
Gmail, and it didn't work. And so, hey, did you get that? No. I typoed on your email. It's literally just ManCalledAmp@gmail.
Uh, if I were to tell somebody I was talking to Amp today, you must get this every day of your life. Amp, is that your real name, or how long have you been called Amp?
So it started, I believe it was 2006.
Yeah.
And everybody who doesn't know the story is surprised that it has nothing to do with radio at all. So my birth name is Anthony. When I was a kid, I was Tony. And so when I turned 18, I was trying to be a little more professional. So I was
Okay.
Anthony. And I was in a coaching football class. And if you've ever been around coaches, they never call you by your actual name.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's abbreviation or you run funny or you're fat or you're whatever, you get a nickname. And
Okay.
so Anthony became Ant, and Ant became Amp because it flows better and because I never actually shut up. And so it followed me out of that class, and my classmates were saying, "Oh, hey, this is my buddy Amp. We took football together." I was like, "It's not Amp, it's Anthony. Stop it." And eventually it kind of occurred to me like, no, dude, you've been given a gift. The universe
Yes.
has given you your own brand. And so I have been professionally known as Amp since about 2009.
Man, sometimes I'm so glad to ask certain questions, and that was another example, man. And the universe has given us a gift in you, my brother. I will just layer on the stuff and embarrass you with flattery, because I am so glad we know each other. It's a gift to my life to have met you, and the kind of conversation we have often starts about work, and then we can peel off into stuff that the dude, very few people notice or wonder at a level that you do. And that's what I really appreciate about you. So for those who are listening, I want to leave you wanting more rather than thinking, oh my God, that was a lot. So let's put a button in this for today, my brother. And but I want to do it again because it's just always worth it, man. When we talk on the phone, when you do it like this, it's pretty great. So people know how to reach you. And they can find you through NLWBC.org. For those who are listening, we're going to share the ManCalledAmp at Gmail or 425-304-1291. That'll ring his bell, or you can get to NLWBC.org and we'll get you connected, because connecting is what we like to do here. We have people who are in the northern part of, there we go. We're showing our fingers intertwined between each of us, that getting people connected and making good things happen, and being good listeners, and advocates for each other. So I appreciate you, my brother. We're going to do this again. So let's put a wrap in it today, and we'll do another one sooner than later. Sound good?
Stay frosty, amigos.
Frosty indeed. All right. Cheers. Peace out.